Our first math problem that we're going to cover is from that book I refer to. This will be covering problems all through the book, and I'm going to at some point make a course about this book because it's super helpful. But that being said, the first one is going to be number 4, which is a commonly missed question, not because it's hard, but because there's kind of a trap in there. It says the result of increasing the quantity y. So what most students will do is they totally miss that part and just focus on this increase right here. But you guys are super smart and you're going to pay attention to the details. So how this actually looks to find y is you need to go y plus, and then that 2,400%, you have to name it as 24y because you're removing those extra zeros for 200. And just like basic algebra, you would combine like terms, which would equal the 10,200. And then whenever you go ahead and solve it down, that on your and type it in on your calculator, I'm going to confirm right here, 200 divided by 25, that is going to be y equals 408. So very simple, but commonly missed, and I see this one a whole lot on the SAT. The next one we are going to do is going to be on this exponential growth function, which is really something that the SAT is quite obsessed with. It's not a hard formula and you don't have to like write it from scratch, but you have to be able to know the concepts. And so 13 is a good higher level test of these concepts, and we'll go over this one together. So 13, the population of trees in a forest has been decreasing by 6% every 4 years, and that's critical there. The population at the beginning of 2015 was estimated to be 14,000. If P represents the population of trees in the forest T years after 2015, which of the following equations best defines P? So you got to pretty much figure out which is the correct written equation. So what we'll do is we're going to eliminate the ones that are really stand out as big wrong, and then we'll narrow it down from there. So first big wrong is when it's saying decreasing by 6%, and on A you put 0.06, that is actually decreasing by 94%. So A is big wrong. So you have to think of it kind of like you're subtracting from 100%. And then B is set up incorrectly with these exponential like formulas. You need to be using multiplication, so that's wrong. And then now we're down to C and D, and the really big detail here is every 4 years. So you have to figure out how you're going to factor that in, and you wouldn't want to times it by 4 because that's going to increase it a lot, but you're going to want to divide it by 4, so the answer is going to be D. A couple key things with this formula: this is always going to be the initial or the starting point, this is going to be the change, and then this little part is going to be the time. Okay, so number 12 is going to be our third problem here. This one is one you're going to be tempted to plug into Desmos, but you need to avoid that on this particular type of problem. I think there's a way to do it, but it takes like twice as long. So on this one here, you have a given system of equations. M and N are constants. The system has infinitely many solutions. And the main issue that most students fall into is that infinitely many solutions, which all it is, it means it's the same line. That's it, like all of it. So you really don't have to stress too much what is going on here, but you have to pay attention to a couple more details on this N. So it's asking what M divided by N is. And you can see that these lines are so similar, but there's one factor difference that you want to pay attention to. So on number 12, the only difference between these two lines is this. The first line is multiplied by 2. So what you would do is you would put a 2 in front and you would technically distribute it. But at this point, you've got to figure out what M divided by N is. So if you distribute this 2 and you match it up with the M, which is next to the X, that's going to be 4X. So you're actually figuring out that your M is 4X. So I'm going to put the 4 above here. And now you are down to the N. And the N on this one here is a little bit different because what you're doing here is, yes, you're distributing that 2. So it's 2 times whatever that number is to equal 6. And I know I'm kind of like shoving it in there, but you would need a 3 to equal 6 because all you're doing is matching, which would be 3. So the answer would be C. These ones come up a good bit and they look harder than they actually are. Okay, so on our fourth problem, which is going to be number 13, this is one I whine about all the time because honestly, I don't like discriminants, but this is a discriminant problem. Is there a way to do this with Desmos? Yes, but it's a slider option. So if this had multiple choice, I would probably do it with Desmos. But when it's like fill in the blank like this, especially on module 2, I would not. You're more likely to get the wrong answer at that point because sometimes it can be decimals and stuff. So we are going to work on number 13. And like I said, I don't love discriminants. I'm going to kind of give you the high level a little bit. So discriminant is very simple, but it's just b squared minus 4ac. And what matters is pretty much the number of solutions. So on this problem, it says the equation has exactly two distinct real solution. So if you go to your discriminant rules and pretty much from a high level here, two distinct real solutions is going to be greater than 0. If it has one real solution, it's going to equal 0. And then if it is less than 0, it's going to have 0 real solutions. So how you set this up in actual practice on this one, where it's like b is a positive integer, the equation has exactly two distinct real solutions. What is the least possible value of b? So you pretty much have to take this discriminant formula and apply it to the situation. So we're going to type it out as we go. So on this formula here, we are using the b squared minus 4ac formula, and then we're going to put the greater than 0. And what you're going to go ahead and fill in here is a couple of things. For one, we know, actually, we don't know what b is. So we know we're going to keep it at b. So we're going to go b squared. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to plug in our number. So you go minus 4, and then your parentheses, what I'm going to put is it's 4ac. So I'm going to put -1. And then c is going to be -961. And then if we're following those rules, we're going to put that little symbol there and then 0, or the inequality. So how this pretty much simplifies down is we're still down to b squared. I need an easier way to type that. So if you know an easier way to do to the power of with typing, let me know, because yeah, it's not my favorite to like write it like that. And then what this ends up simplifying to, without showing all these 7,000 steps, is you are going to add, want to simplify it to 3,844 to this side, because this would be negative, and you're going to move it. And then, of course, you're going to square root it, which is going to put b is greater than 62. So then it says, what is the least possible value of b? The least possible value of b is going to be 63. This one is a little bit more fringe, just to be honest. This is like one of my least favorite ones, and we're going Christmas theme for some odd reason. It's actually May 1st when I'm filming this. And this one took me a while to understand. They come up sometimes, but they're really like, they come up, but they're more of a skill I press on for like my super high scores versus my ones that are trying to get like a 1300. Okay, our last one, and the one everybody's a hate, is going to be geometry. So let's see if you guys get this one. So on number 8, let's go ahead and tackle the SOHCAHTOA problem. I'm not going to go deep into SOHCAHTOA. There is videos online about that. I have one, but we're just going to kind of go from the high level. So in triangle DEF, sine of E is 24/74, and angle D is a right angle. So what is the value of sine of F? So we're going to draw our beautiful triangle here. And then it's saying that D is the right angle. So we're going to make sure we put that in the right spot. And you just have to follow it in order. So you got D, E, and then F. So let's put our little right angle sign here. And then I'm going to change the color. Let's go ahead and do purple. And so if we're going for sine of E, we know we are going opposite over hypotenuse, because hopefully you've learned that already. So our hypotenuse based on this is going to be 74. I'm weird to cross through my 7s. If you're the same way, just let me know in the bottom. I'm curious if I'm the only weirdo who crosses through their 7s. Okay, and then your opposite of E is going to be 24. And now, of course, it's saying, what is the sine of F? So you have part of it, of course, because you have that like hypotenuse. But the problem is with sine of F, we need this missing side. But the thing is, Y'all know this is Pythagorean theorem. You got this. So what you have to do is you have to do your a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So you just go 24. Like I said, we're just going Christmas. 24 squared plus we're going to call it x squared because that's easier. Equals 74 squared. Okay. And then all this simplifies down to, and I'm going to save you guys some of the crazy steps that if you're watching this, you probably know that pretty well by now. Minus, what is it? Minus 24 squared. I'm going to square root it. And so then that side, that x is going to equal 270. And so how that's going to look in all is very simple. What is the sign of f? Is going to be that hypotenuse, which is 74. And then the opposite side.